When I say farmers, is this what you pictured, or was it more along these lines? Well, if you know Martha's Vineyard, then you know these guys are what most people out here picture.
I took a tour of a farm, Fisher Island Oysters in New York, and just went through the whole process like what we do on our tours now. And I was blown away by it, and came home and was like, Greg, we should start a farm on the island.
And with that, the idea of the Cottage City Oyster Farm was born.
Ever since taking that tour, it literally was something I knew I wanted to be a part of. And then once, we started looking at the numbers and figuring out if we could do it, and started talking to the farms that are here on the island, you just start to learn like how cool it is, to be a part of the community, how it fits in with the local community here, being an oyster farmer.
Back in 2014, the Martino brothers, Dan and Greg, started the Cottage City Oyster Farm. And these two Houston, Texas natives have had the environment in mind while creating a successful business.
Because it's all about sustainability, cleaning the water, doing a lot of environmental good, which is something that I think everybody that lives here wants to do. But it's also a way to make a good living and have fun and be out on the water. And so we kind of just put it together and gave it a run at it.
We're both kind of entrepreneurial in that way, and we like to just dive into things. So, we had no boat experience, no seamanship experience. We've fished in freshwater ponds, so to come out here and feel the maritime community that's huge on the vineyard and kind of embrace that and say, well, let's start a business that we know nothing about. It really takes a personality to do that, but experiencing the industry of aquaculture, especially shellfish, it just grabs you. Again, it's that thing that you either embrace it or you don't.
And embrace it they did, with drive, passion, and tenacity. They had to wait 2 years after applying to get their first farm. Since then, they have learned a lot. And as Greg says, they like to credit those on the vineyard that have played the role of mentors.
Because we're still continuing to learn, and we'll always continue to learn. But we had great mentors on the island too that really showed us kind of the footprint or the foundation of how to get started. So based on that, we were able to get a good start, and it just all fell into place, and it continues to do so. So we're really fortunate for that.
Our cameras met up with Dan and Greg at the dock first thing in the morning and hopped on board as these farmers went to work. Their first stop was at the work raft, their floating office of sorts, where they proudly showed off their solar panels.
So these are our solar panels. They're not making much power today, not yet. So the power comes down, goes into our generator, or basically our battery storage unit. It's just 3 deep cycle like car batteries. There's an inverter in there. And so it stores the power in the battery, DC, inverts it to AC, and then we get your standard like wall plug like in your house.
120.
Yeah, 120. So it's just like what's in your house. We've got it grounded. There's a metal bar that goes down into the water for safety. You still get a little zip out of it every now and then if it's wet. But and so then we've got our timer here plugged into it. So it's just a 24-hour swimming pool timer, and that we plug in our nursery system pump, which is underneath you right now, and then we also plug our power washer into the inverter as well. And so this powers everything. Did you fill the tube up? There it goes.
Yeah.
Greg's drawing in seawater right now into our power washer. So we use the ocean seawater to clean our oysters. And this powers everything for us. So it's totally off the grid. We just gotta get our boat now on like some biodiesel, then we'd be solid.
The work raft is also where the Martino brothers have their nursery.
This is called an upweller. The nursery system is the real term, a floating upweller system.
So the white thing you see here is it's a box that's about 6 inches deep, and there's a fine mesh screen on the top and the bottom of it. So you can take that box out and basically jump right into the ocean here. So it's open on the bottom. And there's a pump in the middle. There's a trough and a pump in the middle. There's 4 of these boxes. And so what happens is we turn the pump on, and it pumps water out of the trough, which then forces water up through the oysters, through that mesh box, through this tube, into the trough and out again. So it's just basically creating a flow. Because oysters eat the phytoplankton that's in the water, we don't have to give them any food. So we kind of what we're doing is we're creating more flow than what's natural so that they get more of the natural food that occurs. And you can see, you know, how green the ocean is here. The green is their food. It's just microscopic pieces of plant matter, seaweed, algae. And then you can see how clean it is, the water is inside this nursery system compared to the ocean there. So it's actually, they're cleaning all that algae, eating it, turning it into meat, protein, and then we spit it back out. So cleaning the ocean of algae.
And so when we got these oysters, they were 1 millimeter, which is like the size of a grain of sand, basically, by the November, I would say. So we got those in late June. By November, they'll be at approximately 1 inch. So they'll exit this system and be planted onto the farm in these cages and in these bags. So our goal is to feed them, sieve them, give them space, and then basically put them out onto the farm where they'll be for the next 2.5 years or so.
If you still don't understand how this is called a farm, try this. When they first get their oysters, they are called seeds, just like vegetables. While vegetables grow and are ready for harvest at the end of a season, the oysters take a bit longer.
So here's some oysters yesterday. These guys are small. We'll sell these next year. And so what we're kind of doing this time of year right now is we're pulling up cages. All the oysters are different sizes in these cages, just because we haven't gotten to them yet. So then we dump them out on our culling table. We go through, we take out, you know, what's markets, meaning what do we sell this week? What are the large putbacks, which could be sold probably next month? And then what are the small ones? So these guys are the small ones, and so since we know that we're not going to sell these this year, they'll end up getting sold next year, we air dry them. So these guys have been out here for 24 hours now, kind of baking in the sun, and they got rained on a little bit, and what that does is it kind of kills any sponge or seaweed that might be growing on them, barnacles, anything that we don't want. And again, since we know we're not selling these this year, we can get away with that. And then we'll put them, they could be, you know, an oyster can be out for like a week. No problems. And so if, you know, you keep them out like that, everything else that's on them ends up dying. So it's an easy, cheap way to let the sun and Mother Nature kind of clean our oysters for us.
The Cottage City Oyster Farm likes to grow their oysters to about 4 inches. This market allows for them to take the extra time to do that. Markets outside of seafood-friendly New England consider 2.5 inches to be large enough to sell.
Fill this one too.
Because those are dirty.
They're
bags.
dirty bags. We've got a ton of clean bags to where we could swap these bags out.
Yeah, I mean, we could pull up also that too. We have bags.
I'm saying that we're going to end up with another cage of smalls.
Yeah.
That we could air dry in here.
No, I understand
Also.
that. But if we need clean bags, we can pull up our clean bags, is what I'm saying.
Oh, right.
Because I think we're going to need more bags.
Yeah, but these bags are pretty good too. I mean, they're not.
Right. Working with your brother. Dan and I have always been close, which is nice, and we've always worked on projects together, whether it was just art projects, movies, whatever it was, from a really young age. So that's helped us. I'd say you know, at the end of the day, there's always going to be scuffles and arguments, and that can be positive. It can help you
It should
advance.
be positive.
It needs to
Right.
be positive. It doesn't need to be petty and quarrelsome. But I think having that communication, and it's always about communication in any partnership, marriage, business partnership, whatever it is, that is this advancing your goals?
We kind of never stop talking about oyster farming. Like, we'll go out to family dinner. Our parents will come visit. We haven't seen them in a month or so, whatever it is, and all we're still doing is talking about oyster farming. And so the wives have to tell us to stop, or or they join in. Like it definitely consumes. We go see the grandparents. That's what we talk about. Like, we go see. It's become life.
Dan and Greg head out to their farming area to pick up a cage with bags that should have the proper size oysters for them to clean up for market. When full, these cages can weigh over 300 pounds.
Yep. All right. Start the clock. You should have like a little timer.
Oh yeah,
Like a
game show.
Chess match.
So this is what we're talking about. As you can see, it's not just the cage weight and the oyster weight, it's also everything else that grows on it.
Yeah, all this-
Ultimately, what we're creating, again, is kind of a coral reef system on the bottom where algae and seaweed grows, covers the bags,
Ooh, there's a fish.
which allows fish and crabs. That's a natural home for them, which is good. That's the positives of all this, is that we took a empty bottom and basically,
So this is tautog right here. I've heard of tautog. That's a baby tautog. So what's cool is our farm, baby tautog right there. Our farm creates the perfect nursery habitat for this fish. So a commercial fisherman will catch that in like 5 years.
I'm gonna go up there.
When it's market size. Yep, down. Same with the lobsters. We get a lot of baby lobsters, a lot of baby everything. Striped bass, bluefish, because they need this kind of environment. Not just a farm, but nice hiding spots in general. Yeah, you want to go down?
Now they go through the cleaning and picking process. They want market-size oysters, which they will be cleaning up. That means removing all the mud, seaweed, and barnacles.
They don't look very pretty right now. This is directly from the ocean floor. This is what they look like down there, but our process now is to cull out the markets. What we're looking for is the best shape and size that we think our customers want and what actually we want to see on a plate. And we'll put those in a bag, power wash them, clean them up, and then get them on ice.
Yeah, the other thing we're doing is we're sorting to size. So oysters like to grow together with like-sized oysters. That's how they grow best. So, we're not only just picking out the markets, we're also taking, medium guys, something like, again, this would be considered a market for, we'll call out of the market. But something like this that it's not really up to right size yet. We're gonna give this another month, another month to grow, and then we'll harvest it. So those get put into a bag so that we know, they're ready to go in a month.
Oyster drill eggs. So what we also do is again, as you can see, we're touching every single oyster. This happens throughout the course of its life. But the reason why we don't just put it through a tumbler, which at some point we do, or a sorter, is because we got to get rid of these guys. By removing the eggs, by removing the adults for the oyster drills, it really, we hope, can kind of keep the population at bay. I mean, why put that back in the water knowing that 10 of these are gonna hatch, and then eventually, that's 10 oysters a day that are gonna be consumed because we let that go back in the water.
This is an oyster drill. These little suckers wreak havoc on oyster farms. They climb onto an oyster and use their drill-like mouth to suck the meat out of the shells.
Oyster farmers are really products of their environment. Again, the market dictates the size, so wherever you're selling determines how big of an oyster you're selling. Your environment actually gives it the flavor, so an oyster tastes like the environment it's grown in. Your gear that you use is a product of also your environment. So the gear we use, we have to. Other places may have more options, but again, that's all determined by the environment. Does it grow best in that environment? So everything you're looking at is basically us understanding the site that you're working and then finding the most efficient way to grow that product and giving it the best shape, size, and flavor.
Usually we get about 20% markets out of each cage. Again, this is a cage that we haven't touched since a couple months, in May. We like to handle each cage a couple times a year, each oyster a couple times a year, air drying it if we can, or just power washing it, cleaning bags. The name of the game is keeping those bags as clean as possible because again, the food that they eat is already in the water, so we need them to get as much water as possible. Adult oyster filters 50 gallons of water a day. So this guy's drinking 50 milk jugs of water a day. You know, it's a lot of water. And that's only if, though, it has access to that much water. You know, so you see those bags and how fouled they can get. When the mesh gets, fouled up, you're restricting water flow to them, so then it might only get 30 gallons of water a day.
Oysters are a perfect natural filter. In fact, they have been used to help clean polluted water areas in the past.
It's nice the sun's not cooking us. Yesterday was brutal.
Yeah, it was really hot yesterday. We try to get out here as early as possible. It's better for the oysters, better for us.
Yeah, I would say most fishermen in general, we're farmers, but people who work on the water in general try to be done by noon.
The next step is to power wash the oysters before giving them one last scraping for presentation purposes. Then they are counted and put on ice.
Just you see how the barnacles, there's a little sponge on it. Kind of chip that translucent shell a little bit too. See how it comes off, so it makes a nice even edge. So what's cool about oysters is like they're in their own container, right? Once you get these things on ice, they can stay, they're good, they're fresh for at least a week or two. Never eat the oyster if it's open. As long as it's closed, it's got salt water trapped in there with it. And it's fresh as can be, it's like being in the supermarket or something. Again, if you ate this oyster now or if you ate it in 2 weeks, it would taste the exact same.
All the oysters that are not making the trip to market are put back in the bags, then into the cages, and then back out on the watery farm. Now Dan and Greg are off to the docks for gas and to unload their oysters for a trip to market. While Dan takes care of the Cottage City boat, Greg brings the oysters to Menemsha Fish House, a wholesaler on the island that buys as much local seafood as they can to sell to the local restaurants.
Dan and Greg are their product is just superior. We're seeing such a fantastic response from customers, and they honestly at this point can't keep up with how many orders they have right now, which is really great for them. We'll see them, they come in once a week with 600 oysters, and they're already pre-sold before they even get here. Yep, so yeah, we have going to Port Hunter, Beach Road, State Road, and Guard East.
The Cottage City Oyster Farm has their fans and supporters, but what really makes this a strong business is family. They need each other to continue to grow. And for Dan and Greg, that is the best part of the job.
I think we're both lucky to have someone you can trust.
Right.
And I think that's the foundation of it all too, is at the end of the day, regardless of how bad it gets, it is family, and families are, that's big for us,